Hello and welcome to another episode of the Halloween Podcast. I am your host, Lyle Perez. Today is a very special day because I have Bob from Static Radio here. We're going to be talking a little bit about some homemade costumes. Bob, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you today?
Doing good. So, I got you on the show. You are an expert in the field of making your own costumes, I assume.
Well, I've kind of got a costume on right now in a way. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
What'd you say? I mean, it's a little bit of a costume.
Yes.
It's a digital costume, but it's a costume nonetheless.
Yes. Well, I did look into you a little bit before I got you on the show, and I did notice that you kind of have an animation as your video, which I was prepared for. So
good. So it's not a shock. That's fantastic.
What's kind of the story behind that and Static Radio?
Sure. So the animation came later, but Static Radio is a show that I've been doing for a while with my co-host Miles, and each week we tell stories. So we tell stories from our lives, and so those stories we hope are going to be either strange or funny or both, and sometimes we hit the mark and sometimes we don't, but that's the way the world goes. And we tell, just tell funny stories basically about things that have happened to us over time. Now the cat that you're looking at, the animated cat, came about because we've been doing the show for a while, and somebody who was a listener said, boy, wouldn't it be funny if you guys were animated? And so that stuck in my head, and for many years I'm like, how can I do this? Because I'm no animation expert or anything,
right? And
and so just over time the tools became available, and so around, I think it was 2018, I figured it out, right? So I figured out, I can do this, and I did tests and so forth, and then anyway, we did animate the show for probably about 9 months, I want to guess. Where we both were animated. So I'm an animated cat. He was an animated snowman. And kind of the scene you see here with the lightning bolt, he would be on the other side of the lightning bolt, and we would have our conversation and tell our stories. But he's not my co-host is not very technologically inclined. And so we couldn't do it live like you and I are doing it together. If we could do that, that'd be fantastic. But there's no way in the world. We don't live near each other, and so there's no way that I could get him through it.
Right.
So basically, the old way was I would take our audio and then I would animate the characters after the fact. But then I started guesting on shows and so forth, and I'm like, you know what? I'll use this persona, the blue cat persona, to be my personage, because a lot of people want to do video nowadays. And so I said, okay, well, the cat's just going to be me. And so since I can, this is all live, right? So yeah, it's a live capture. And so I've been using the cat as my persona and just doing different things and so forth. It's kind of fun. I love the idea. This gets into the costume aspect of things. Now I'm actually coming around to the topic after all that chatter, because I like the idea. So I think one of the brilliant strokes of brilliance in the Star Wars universe is the fact that a good number of the main characters can be anyone.
Okay.
Right? Chewbacca doesn't have to be Peter Mayhew, who originated it, right?
Right.
They have a new guy, which I can't pronounce his name. He's Norwegian or something. He's playing Chewbacca, right? Darth Vader didn't have to be David Prowse, and actually several different people actually wore the suit during filming of the original Star Wars, right? So then you have this ageless character, and so I'm like, the cat is my ageless character. And so even as I get older, the cat stays the same. And so I've been using it now. What is that? I guess 8 years, right?
Wow.
Close to 8 years. So, yeah. So then I like that idea because I did, even when I was a kid, when I went and saw Star Wars, I was like, I'm like, this genius, this George Lucas, whether he knew it or not, was a genius because he had C-3PO and R2-D2 and all these characters that everyone loved, and yet they weren't tied necessarily directly to the people who played them. I know that he's been very loyal to all of those people throughout their lives, which is, I think, a credit to him. But he didn't have to be, right? These characters got created and they live in our minds. And when we see them, they're so recognizable, but they're not Mark Hamill or Harrison Ford, you know?
Right.
So, and oddly enough, the weird thing is I think that's why we're getting off on tangent, but that's why when Carrie Fisher passed away and they kind of recreated her, I think that's why everybody was mad.
Yeah.
So, but that gets to the idea of costumes, right? So, the costume becomes, the character. You bring the costume to life, but the costume really is kind of front and center. And I grew up kind of lower middle class, and me and my brother, basically we got a lot of hand-me-down stuff, and it was usually not in the best of condition.
Same here. Same here.
There you go. See? And so what happened was we had this kind of mishmash of stuff during Halloween, and most of the time, we couldn't go by. And you mentioned, I didn't know what the name of it. You mentioned Bing Cooper. I'm not going to say I even know what this is. But these, at the time, there was kind of like these vinyl things you'd put on, like a schmuck. And you'd have a mask that would go on your face that was plastic and terrible. We couldn't even afford those, right? Which usually were like Walgreens or Woolworths or someplace like that.
Yeah.
And so we just were stuck with whatever came down. And so through the years, we would just, it was kind of like your dress up box or whatever, and we would just create things. I know for many years, one year I made a mask out of an old pair of pants. So I had a pair of pants that wasn't blue jeans that were, I think they were like tan pants or something that were, not super heavy material. And I cut a mask out of it. And then I used them like an old Sharpie, which there's a thing called Marksall or Mark-it-all or something like that. Terrible, terrible, stinky Sharpie thing. And I colored it black so that I would have a black mask. And I used that thing for years. And it had, I cut it so that there wasn't a string or anything. I cut it so the fabric would tie behind your head. So it was all one piece. And it stunk to high heaven. Because of the marker, because of these terrible old markers.
Yeah.
And then you'd sweat and it would get on your face and the whole thing. But I used that mask year after year. So like I'd be Lone Ranger one year, I'd find a cowboy hat somewhere, and then be Lone Ranger, and then the next year I'd be Zorro because I needed a mask.
Yeah.
And so each year I just find some new masked character that I could try to be. Because I had made, in my eyes at the time, I made this really cool mask, which was not, the cheapo plastic thing that you would buy at the store with the terrible, the elastic with the little metal ends clipped on it,
right?
That constantly broke or what have you. Everybody always had the broken mask.
Yeah.
And so then, you just kind of went with whatever you had. You'd be an army man because somebody gave you an old canteen and an old army helmet at some point. And this was childhood, right? So you'd got. I don't know that. I don't have any recollections that anybody thought my costumes were really that good. That was that was the. I mean, everybody was polite. And you always got candy,
yeah.
But but I don't, and they all go, "Oh, what are you supposed to be?" And then, you'd say, but there was never too much fawning over the incredible lifelikeness of my creations back in those days.
Well, they were probably just trying to be polite and being like, "Oh, it looks like this person didn't have enough money to buy a costume, so they just threw a bunch of stuff together.
Here you go, honey. Take another candy bar.
Yeah, take an extra piece. Here you go. Here you go." But as far as making your own costumes, I can remember there was one time where I actually made my own costume, and it wasn't even really like a homemade costume. It was one of those things where I had to dress up for work. This is, I don't know what time. This is probably like 10 years ago, maybe longer than that now, 15 years ago. I worked for a place called Berg Electric, and I was in their accounting department. So I was there all the time, and we had to dress up for Halloween. I remember a lot of the adults were like, "I don't want to dress up," but it became like a mandatory thing. Like,
really,
we had to do it, and we're like, okay. Everybody dressed up. I think how it started was we had a Halloween party the year before, and like one person showed up in a costume, and the
well,
uppers,
that's good.
Yeah, the uppers were like, no, we need to be more into it. So next year they made it mandatory. So I think like 95% of everybody we all had costumes.
You didn't show up and like put a pocket protector in and say I'm an accountant.
No, we weren't able to do that. But me being the more old school nostalgic guy, I was like, I'm just gonna grab a white sheet, cut some holes in it, throw it over my head, and there, I'm a ghost.
You're a ghost.
Yeah,
fantastic.
But then what I realized was, if you just put a sheet over your head with eyes and you're moving about, those eyes they move place, and then you can't see. You can't keep it stationary. So I came up with the idea of just putting a mask over the sheet, and then that would keep the eye holes in place, and I'd walk around. And it was so hot in that thing. I was like, yeah, I can't do this for so long.
I think that's a Peanuts thing. I think there wasn't it like somebody had a sheet over their head with a witch mask on or something.
Yeah. But that's just what helped keep the eye holes in the right spot so I can actually see. And it wasn't the best costume in the world, I'll admit it. But I mean, it was $30 for a sheet that I just cut holes in because I didn't have an old one.
That's expensive. Lyle, my God, you're just breaking the bank.
I know. And my wife was like, "Oh, you got us a new sheet," and I was like, "Not really."
I would have went to Goodwill and probably got this nasty sheet. That would have been my idea. I'd be like, "Oh, $2, fantastic. Where's this been?"
I should have done that, but I don't think of those things.
Actually, you're probably smarter because the Goodwill one probably was not
tainted.
Probably not the best option,
right?
For putting on your head.
Yeah, but that's my only brush with it.
Really? So the funny thing, we had this skeleton mask that I had gotten from my cousins, I think, and it was one of those plastic ones, right? So I don't think it was really plastic. I don't even know what it was, molded. I guess we'll call it that.
Yeah.
And it had green hair attached to the top, and so that was your fallback. So if you couldn't think of anything, we had this hand-me-down skeleton thing where you just put it on and wear your clothes, and you were the skeleton. But it was so beat up, the chin was all like cracked, and the mouth was all cracked and everything, and so you really were a skeleton in pretty bad shape. It was kind of like the you wanted to think of something. You didn't want to wear the skeleton. I had to wear the skeleton when I was little a few times because my brother was a jerk and didn't want to help me make anything. But, I probably liked it at the time too. But yeah, so the skeleton was always a fallback. But the interesting thing is I took that experience, and then as I had kids, when my kids were growing up. Well, I should say we came together. So I married my wife, and my wife, her family made their costumes, but they had money. So
that's a good combination. Make your own costume and you have money.
They were more like you and your $30 sheet. But so she she dressed up as Princess Leia, and they literally sewed a costume for her and made the hair, right?
Yeah.
So that she had the buns, the cinnamon bun hair.
Yeah.
And then her brother was R2-D2, and they made an R2-D2 for him. And then her dad, he went to the time. This was back in that time period. He went to Florida to Disney World and got the only place you could get a Darth Vader mask at that time was at Disney World.
Wow. And
he went and got one so he could be Darth Vader and walk them around. So, I mean, that's the dedication. Other end of it, right? That's dedication. Exactly. So then they were, Star Wars characters, and then he made a cape and a chest plate and everything, but he actually purchased and I think at the time it was like $150 or something crazy. Oof. And he actually went and got it and purchased the Darth Vader mask. So he'd have that, and then built the rest of it around it. And they used it for a couple of years in various, things, because they put a lot of effort into it.
Right.
But that was kind of her, growing up was this, kind of the other end of it. And so then when we came together and had kids, she was into making costumes, but on a budget. And I'm like, yeah, let's do this. So we made all of our kids pretty much, unless they specifically asked for something, right?
Yeah.
That they said, I really want, because you know how kids are.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we always made something. We made, when my daughter was little, probably, I guess, I don't know, 3 or 4 years old, she was Raggedy Ann, but my wife sewed her the costume, and then I spent an incredible amount of time putting red yarn into a stocking cap to make hair, one strand at a time.
Nice.
So I, basically went and bought red yarn at the yarn barn or wherever it was at.
Yarn barn.
And then I would cut them I would take and cut a random length, and then I would essentially use like a knitting needle to tuck it into this hat, tie a knot on it, and build hair on a little stocking cap for this little kid. And so then once it was all done, then we put the stocking cap on her, and then my wife kind of cut the hairdo, right? So we made a wig to fit, and it took me forever. I never want to do this again, because it's basically one thing of yarn at a time. But and she was little, and she doesn't even remember probably, but she looked so good, right? It was such an experience for us to build it, and then to take, go out trick-or-treating, that, it was a lasting thing for us, even though we have the pictures for her, but she probably doesn't recall this, but
right.
But it was fun all the way around, because it all kind of came together, and it looked really nice, and we had a good time doing it. And so that kind of set the pace going forward. Now, at one point, my daughter was only wanted to be Disney princesses, and so we would buy, the Disney princess thing, but we tried to do something to it to make it a little bit better.
Yeah.
But when my son was a baby, there was a Rugrats was a cartoon. I don't know if you remember this at all.
Yeah, Rugrats.
And there was a little character called Chucky. And so Chucky had a very particular shirt that he always wore. It had like a space, a very minimal space theme on it.
Yeah.
And so as a baby, he was Chucky. We created a T-shirt with that logo on it.
Nice.
We did a screen, all this computer stuff. Did a screenshot from Rugrats, grabbed it. I, went into Photoshop and made it so it was actually printable rather than just being this grainy, crappy screenshot at the time. And then we made him a Chucky shirt, and then it didn't last long, but we made him pipe cleaner glasses to go on. But he was so little that he ripped them right off.
No.
But we got a picture. That was the whole thing. We got a picture.
Nice. Did anybody know he was supposed to be Chucky?
Yeah. At the time period, it fit in, and people didn't know he was Chucky, and we used to do it. My office at the time would have all the kids come in in costume and go office to office to get candy. And so that was, kind of a little, I guess, I was a minor part in making that happen overall. So we had, an office where a lot of people were, at a certain age where they were having children, and we had all these children. And so each year we would come through, and then thankfully my workmates in the office were, kind enough, and they would decorate their doors, and the kids would walk door to door and get candy. And then we would go into the conference room and have a big Halloween celebration with, have lunch, have pizza or what have you, and play some games and so forth. And everybody was into it, even though everybody didn't have kids. They were all into it and really made it a nice time there for a while there when they were doing that. We've moved on to other places, and so it's not the same, but it was a good time, and the kids really had a good time. So, and it's those kind of. It's weird how Halloween, everybody talks about spooky and it's going to be spooky, it's got to be creepy and so forth. But really, it ends up being about people kind of coming together, and having a good time, even though your initial thoughts about it are these other things, and then it comes through and really is kind of a shared experience. And so that's the great thing about that.
Yeah, well, I think it was Eric Matthews from Boy Meets World who said that Halloween was the one holiday that brought families together.
They didn't fight over anything, I guess.
Yeah, that was
but
that was
except
good.
for the candy, perhaps. But the funny thing is, by doing all this when my children were little, as they grew up, they took on where they wanted to make things, right?
Nice.
So even as they got into their preteens and teens years, they then kind of drove the bus, as it were, and then we just helped out as we were going. So I can remember my daughter, when she got older, she was Iron Man, and I always joked. I said, "Well, no, you're your trailer park Iron Man," because it was all homemade. It wasn't like there was molded plastic or anything.
Yeah.
But anyway, so she went and got a red T-shirt. She got gold foil tape, and made the designs on the T-shirt. And the only thing that she purchased that was specifically Iron Man was just a pullover mask, right? So it was a plastic pullover mask. And then we got a touch light. Which I don't know if you know what touch lights are, but it's basically a battery-operated light like you'd stick in your closet or whatever. It's round. And when you push on it, it lights up, and then that's the switch. But anyway, we fitted a touch light as the arc reactor in on the chest, right? And so then she could turn her light on and off by touching it. But she kind of put most of that together on her own, and then I think I jumped in basically with the touchlight idea to make it so it looks like there's something there doing something. But they kind of took it on their own. One year she was the Wicked Witch that got smashed by the house.
Yeah.
And we built the house and put it over her, and then all you could see was her feet.
Nice.
And she had on the ruby slippers. That wasn't before they were taken away, but just weird. And this all comes out of their imagination. She's like, I want to be, the Wicked Witch that gets smashed. And then you mentioned your ghost thing. My son went as Charlie Brown, the Charlie Brown ghost.
Nice.
Which was the ghost with all the holes in the sheet.
Yeah.
And he went around, and every time somebody put something in a bag, he goes, I got a rock. Because in the show, right, Charlie Brown, every time somebody put something in his candy sack, he's like, oh, I got a rock. And people thought it was hilarious. It was just like, but he kept it up. I couldn't believe he was so committed that, and everybody knew who this was. And then when he says, I got a rock, then they all would crack up. And he did it, consistently through our whole thing, because we used to do a lot of, nowadays, everything's changed in the sense where, probably you and I got to go to neighbors' houses where my kids was a much more controlled environment. We do trunk or treats or go to the office or things like that.
Unfortunately, times do change, but luckily I live in a small town now where we have a lot of historical homes here, and they're all down like one main street. So plus I live in a I guess a better neighborhood, if you want to say, to where everyone around
Lyle lives in a good neighborhood.
Well, they're like the doctors, the lawyers, and things like that. They're not in my neighborhood. I live like on the outskirts of that neighborhood, but we can walk to that neighborhood. It'll take us 5-10 minutes to get there with the walk, and they're all good, nice people, and some of them decorate, some of them don't. But my kids have fun going through there. But speaking of being recognized, that kind of sparked something in my head. Like, oh wait, there was another time I remember doing a costume, but nobody knew who I was. It was again at work, and we had to dress up for Halloween. I think this was year 2, because I remember the first year I did the sheet, and then I think the next year we wanted to do it again. So of course it was mandatory, and I was like, gosh, what could I do? I don't know. And then one of my office manager said, hey, why don't we do something as a group? And I was like, okay, that just made things worse, but they might give me some ideas. And they said, let's do decades. And I was like, okay. So somebody was like the 20s, somebody was the 30s, somebody was the 40s, yada, yada. I ended up being the 80s. And I was like, all right, what's the most 80s thing I can think of that's easy and fast? And I was like, all right, I'm just gonna get a white suit. I'm going to get a pink shirt, roll up them sleeves, and put on some
Miami
loafers.
Vice.
And I was like, yeah, I'll just be Don Johnson, Miami Vice. And literally nobody knew who I was.
Really?
Not a single person looked at me and said, you're Don Johnson from Miami? No, it was, are you a doctor? You're a doctor, aren't you? And I was like, no, just look at the loafers, no socks.
Well, you could have said you're a preppy. That was an 80s thing, too.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a preppy.
Yeah.
But, you could have been James Spader in any movie where he was a jerk.
Yes, but nobody got it, and they're like, that doesn't look very 80s. I was like, this is probably the most 80s things here. But am I supposed to do the flock of seagulls hair? Like, yeah,
maybe it wasn't. I mean, obviously it was very 80s with the pastels and everything, but maybe it wasn't so overtly 80s that everybody jumped into it, right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, but that just when your kids were being recognized, that sparked it. Like, oh wait, yeah, I remember that time I just wasn't recognized. But I kind of cheated. I bought it was a Scarface costume because I couldn't find a white suit anywhere. So I bought the Scarface costume and just took everything. It was white pants, white shirt, and then just bought a pink shirt, and there we go.
Well, you needed the Ferrari Testarossa car to really sell it, and then they would have got it. But,
I also had a mullet. I remember that. I had a mullet. And like,
were you singing Heartbeat while you were walking?
With big old aviator glasses. Anyway, it was fun. It was fun.
Johnson song.
So making your own costumes is fun. So it's another way to have more fun with it instead of just going out and buying a costume.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it can take you months sometimes. I mean, around August, you got to think, well, if I'm going to do this, how am I going to do it? And then you got to start preparing, because depending on your idea, right? Depends on how complicated it gets. I mean, my son went as Snoopy one year. Snoopy as, the World War I flying ace. So he was on he was a big another box idea, but he was on top of his doghouse. And so we got him a white hoodie and made some Snoopy ears on it. The funny thing was, the hardest part to get that would look convincing was the goggles.
Oh, wow.
So, he had the hat and the goggles and so forth, and that we had to purchase that, and that took the longest to get because it wasn't part of anything else. And so we wanted to find one that kind of looked like, was in the cartoon. My son was very much into Charlie Brown when he was younger, so had a lot of Charlie Brown ideas. But
nice.
So yeah, that was one that was, most of the rest of it was fairly simple. But the goggles were hard, and he really wanted the hat and goggles, and so, but then everybody, got it. It was a little tough walking around.
Yeah.
In that, but it worked out. Now, you mentioned weird ones that nobody gets, and this is another one that my son did that no one got, but he stuck with it. He's very committed to his ideas, apparently. So this would be pre Elon Musk.
Okay.
But whenever Doge came out, there's the reason Doge is named Doge. I don't know if I'll give a little history lesson in case people don't know. Is not because they come up with this coin and called it Doge. It was because the guy's dog was named Doge, right? And so Doge was a dog. You remember this at all?
Yeah, I remember. I actually had some Dogecoin.
Oh, there you go.
I have a terrible story about that if you ever want to hear it sometime.
Well, you can go into it here if you want. So so he wanted to be Doge, and so basically we got a picture of the dog and printed it on a shirt, and that was his costume.
Nice.
And he went around, and he's like, and people were like, "Well, is this just your dog?" Because this was at a time when no one really knew about this.
But was it the actual picture, or was it the same dog?
Yeah, it was the actual picture of the dog. Of Doge. Yeah. He's like, "I'm Doge," and the people are like, "Okay." Who's Doge?
Yeah, and that might have been too obscure at the time.
But he loved it. He thought it was hilarious. Yeah. Because nobody got it.
Yeah.
Absolutely no. I think maybe one person out of everybody, because I was walking around with him. He's probably, I don't know, 11 years old or something when he had this idea. And yeah, he went and he stuck with it. He's Doge. And I'm like, I go, buddy, I don't think anybody's going to know what the heck this is. He's like, that's okay. So what happened with your Dogecoin?
Oh, man. Hopefully my wife never hears this, because it's not going to make her look... It doesn't make her look bad, but she's going to... If she ever hears about this, she would literally get, furious.
Oh, no.
This is what happened.
We're ruining lives here today.
Yeah. Back in 2019, when we decided to move from California to Tennessee, we were ready to go and all that stuff. For the 2 years before that, I was accumulating Dogecoin because it was literally 0.003 cents per each one. I accumulated so many to where I had 1.2 million or something like that.
Oh my gosh!
It was about $2,000 I had invested in the coin. So we decided to move to Tennessee in 2019. Our house sold, but we didn't get the money until a week later. I don't know, escrow just took forever. Well, mostly because it happened right before Thanksgiving. So everyone was closed and things like that. So we didn't get our money until about a week later. And we were down to it cost a lot of money to move, especially from California to here. A U-Haul by itself was $3-4 grand. So we needed the money, and we were down to pennies in the bank account. We were waiting for the money from escrow to come into the account so we can have money for the move and all that. And my wife was just getting very upset, and of course, me trying to be the best husband I can, I was like, all right, I'll figure this out. So I decided, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and sell this $1 million Dogecoin that I have. I'll get rid of it, and then I'll buy it back once the escrow money comes back. I'll just rebuy it. And so I did, and I ended up making $400 or something like that, because it was a little bit higher, but it was still relatively really cheap. And we moved here. We get settled in. COVID happens. I completely forget about the Dogecoin, and then probably, I don't remember when this was. I think it was in 2001 or 2002. Dogecoin went up to 70 cents.
Right, yeah.
Each. So I had 1 million of those stacked up to where I didn't even think about it. I didn't need it. And because my wife was so mad about we're not going to have money, she was very worried. I sold it for I think it was I don't know, $3,000 or something like that. But that got us here. Gosh. But if I would have held on to that thing, I would have been close to a millionaire right now.
That's crazy.
Yes, and all because stupid escrow didn't hurry up and give us the money that we needed to move. And of course, I just forgot about it. And then COVID happened, so we weren't thinking about, throwing money into Dogecoin. I was worried about trying to find toilet paper.
Right. Yeah. And a lot of other concerns.
Yeah. So, my wife doesn't know that story. I've told it to a few people that have talked about like cryptos and stuff. So, but she doesn't know. I never told her. Of course, I'm not going to look at her and say, "You costed me $1 million, woman." I'm not going to do that.
Let's just put it on your bill here, young lady.
Yeah. So that's that. Yeah, you could have been talking to a Dogecoin millionaire.
Well, especially.
Well, it would have been close. I think I did the math, and if I would have sold it at its peak, it would have been like 700 and something thousand. But that would have been a lot of taxes too.
Right. Still, take half of it away. You still got a lot of money.
I mean, that 300,000 that buy my house.
Right. Exactly. You're all set.
Yeah.
Man, those are always the heartache moments.
Yeah.
Right? So,
but I'm fine with it. I mean, I laugh about it. It's not like I'm mad. I make a decent living. I don't mind working. I like working. This is what I do. So. We would have
worked a lot less had we. No, I'm just joking.
We'd sure be able to do more stuff. I'd be able to finish my studio. I don't know if you can see behind me, but I'm slowly working on the studio, trying to get it back up and running.
You got the black and orange Halloween colors going for your soundproofing. That's fantastic.
And I was able to get my fancy McDonald's poster. That thing's from like the 70s.
Yeah. Oh wow. Well, that's kind of creepy in and of itself, unfortunately.
That's why it's in the Halloween podcast studio.
I'm looking at it like, oh.
Yeah, people make comments.
Ronald looks a little creepy there, pulling those children along, or vice versa. No, that's wild. But, I was going to, so not as good as your story in the least, but I always joke with my son and tell him he cost me money because at one point I was into taking old computers and making them into various things. And I got an old computer and at the time Bitcoin was just being, a thing.
Right.
And I was like, well, I can make a Bitcoin mining machine out of this. This is when you could actually do it with, at home without having to have, a bunch of complicated things. Yeah. And then he's like, he wanted to play Minecraft. And so I made him a Minecraft server. And so I said, you cost me so much. It never happened, but because I made a Minecraft server for you and your friends out of this machine rather than making the Bitcoin mining thing that I wanted to.
Yeah.
And, but this was like early days of Bitcoin. Now the worst part is somebody that I know, became a Bitcoin millionaire during that time period.
Wow.
Because he kind of stuck with the game plan and concentrated rather than just being whimmy and doing whatever their children wanted.
Right.
Yeah, he still is. So good for him.
Yeah, that's
lucky guy.
Yeah, I mean, I would have been lucky too, but
yeah,
I am lucky. I have my wife, so that's good.
Yeah. Well, you're probably better off. You would have went on some kind of rampage with all that kind of cash.
Yeah. Have you ever heard the joke?
You would have bought the Ferrari, and then you'd be with nothing.
Well, have you heard the joke about the guy winning the lottery?
What's that?
Guy walks into his room. His wife's there, and he's like, "Honey, pack your bags. We won the lottery." And she goes, "Well, what should I pack?" He's like, "I don't care. Just pack your stuff and get out of here."
Oh, that's terrible.
That is a terrible joke, but it's just so off the wall funny.
That's funny. Yeah, well, you're not part of the lottery plan, young lady.
Yeah, sorry. Well, nah, I've come to terms with it. I don't need a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lyle will be crying after the show. The Dogecoin.
I think I need to start an argument with my wife right now. Yeah.
Happy Halloween, folks.
Happy Halloween. Well, speaking of homemade costumes, here in the Halloween podcast, we like to give you a little bit of history on some things. So I'm going to give a little bit of a history on homemade costumes, which I've talked about homemade costumes on the the series that I did where, we looked at some of the decades from Halloween's, how they celebrated it in the 50s, 60s. I got the 70s one finished, and that one should be releasing, I don't know, sometime next month probably. But we're working our way. So homemade costumes, I mean, we didn't have Ben Cooper for forever, so people would had to have made costumes. People you don't see in the Old West saloons, like they're like, hey, you can buy your drink here. Oh, and also buy this Halloween costume. Like they didn't have those things. So people would make their Halloween costumes, and it all started probably in like the early 1900s. Was when the thing was becoming really big. People were using old clothes. They were using sheets, paper. They were even using soot from the fireplace and stuff to put it on you. Use it as what do you call it, makeup and things like that. So the costumes, they weren't really fancy. They were meant to like hide your identity, so you can play pranks on people. You can join in on the community parades. Some of the things, of course, they had like, spirits, witch stuff, people dressed up as like dead figures, that sort of stuff. So people really like that type of stuff in the early 1900s. That was what, Victorian era, I think. I don't know really my decades.
I think that was the late 1800s Victorian era.
So
not to correct you, I'm sorry, I shouldn't correct the host. That's what I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's fine. My memory is so bad when it comes to a lot of these things. Like I joke with it all the time, but I do so much stuff. I do a lot of researching and things like that, and a lot of the times I can't remember what I researched. Once I actually bring it out, like I'll listen to old Halloween podcast shows, like stuff that I did years ago, and I'm like, I do not remember this episode one bit. I don't remember that even having that guest on. But it's just one of those things where you just do so much and you just can't store it on your head. It just doesn't stay. Doesn't stay.
You're like, honey, that Dogecoin, I just made that up on the spot. Made that whole story up.
Some things you just can't forget. You just can't forget some things. But in the 20s and the 30s, that's when things really started to bump. People were learning about making their own costumes in like Good Housekeeping and other magazines that were published at the time. Parents and kids, they would stitch together hobo costumes, clowns. They'd be fairies. They'd be like they'd use cardboard boxes. They'd use like flour sacks. Put it over your head. You're a potato. And a lot of stuff like that is what they did. So there's a lot of good history on the type of costumes that people made and how they celebrated Halloween, because they don't celebrate Halloween. They didn't celebrate it back then the way we do now. They really don't.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
So I live in the St. Louis area in Missouri. So in St. Louis, they have a tradition. I'm not from St. Louis. I moved here for work and whatnot. But they have a tradition where the kids, as they go house to house and what have you, they have to tell a joke to get the candy.
Okay.
Is that something that you've ever heard of outside of here? I've never heard of it anywhere else myself. I was curious if you had.
I have heard something like that. But I think I heard that on a sitcom. Mm-hmm. Or something to that effect. But I have heard that you needed to tell a joke before you got your treat. But
it's interesting. Yeah,
that's not something that happens around here. I mean, it happens everywhere, but I do know that when you go up and you don't say trick or treat, of course the person's always like, well, you got to say trick or treat first. So that I do know. But the telling a joke one is not something that I've seen happen here.
Yeah, it was new to me, and so when we first moved and so forth, we lived in an older house that had a big porch, and so everybody on the street would be on the porch with their candy, and the kids would come by and they'd have to tell a joke, and it was all new to me. It was fun. It was great fun because a lot of the jokes are just horrible,
right?
But it was great fun because then the kids. They'd come up and tell a joke. Even little tiny kids. Yeah. Their parents would prep them with a joke, and they would come up to tell the joke to get their candy. Now the the other part of it that's a little bit more interesting is a lot of times it was their parents would be with them, but they usually have a wagon and a cooler, and a lot of people were drinking, so that was a whole other aspect of things.
Nice.
That was new to me as well. On the trick or treat circuit, and they would the kids would hop back in the wagon or whatever, and they'd go down to the next one, and then Dad's got beers with him as he's walking the kids around. Everybody's walking, no driving.
Right.
But again, that was another one of those things that I grew up in mostly rural, and so walking house to house was quite an ordeal.
Yeah.
When I was little, because they weren't next door to each other like that. They were. You'd have large yards, and so you'd have to walk a ways, and so you'd only get maybe a dozen houses, and you were exhausted because it was so long to walk. Where these kids, they're knocking out 20, 30 houses easily in a short stroll.
Yeah, those kids today.
I always wondered about that, because when I ask people about it, a lot of people have never heard of it, and so it seems to be a fairly regional situation with the joke telling. And some people are like, you get nothing unless you tell me a joke. I mean, they're really hardcore about it. I was never. I'm like, yeah, whatever, kid, tell me your joke, that's fine. But some people are like, no, they get nothing if they don't know a joke. And then some of the kids would be helping the other one to get a joke. It was really kind of an interesting situation.
Yeah. Well, this little custom is something that happens mostly in the Midwest. They call it joke or treat is kind of what it is. It's really big in Iowa, Missouri, of course, where you're at, and the Dakotas. It's very common there. But from the little bit of research that I just did, it looks like it can be of course, it's got to be like the same joke, like the kids got to have it rehearsed, and it's got to be like weird stuff. Like some of the examples are, why do mummies take time off? They're afraid to unwind. Or what's a ghost's favorite dessert? Ice cream. Things like that, and the kid can have their treat. So I don't know. I guess it's just learning lines for children.
Well, I mean, if you look at it one way, it's public speaking in a little bit of a way, because you're going up to people you don't know, and you're having to convey something to them. So you could, if you really wanted to dig, you could say, yes, it's teaching these children public speaking skills to go down and tell jokes down through the neighborhood to all these people they don't even know. But no, it's just kind of a weird thing. But it just spurred in my head. So one of the best homemade costumes that I think I have seen that was very clever and very weird came from my time sitting on the porch getting jokes told to me. This kid comes up, and he's probably, 12 or 13 or something like that. And he's wrapped in cellophane, like, wrapped in plastic wrap. But underneath, he's got things sticking out and so forth. And I'm like, it was kind of apparent, but I had to ask him just to make sure I got it right.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are you? And he's like, I'm a leftover. And so he was basically like an old sandwich wrapped up. He had like a piece of cardboard for the bread, and he had green stuff for lettuce sticking out and everything. Yeah, he was a leftover, where basically they put layers of ingredients on him and wrapped him up in like a big have you ever wrapped up packages in plastic or anything like that? It's like that for packing, and wrapped him up. But it was very clever. He's like, yeah, I'm a leftover. And I'm like, oh, that's hilarious. I mean, it's all just for lack of a better term, it's all just garbage, and they stuck it on him and wrapped him up, and I'm like, that's a very clever costume. I really appreciate the thought that went into this. Yeah.
I mean, I remember in a sitcom, I don't know if you ever saw the sitcom Brotherly Love, but I covered the Halloween episode they did, I think, very, very early on. It was one of the first episodes of the Halloween podcast. And in that episode, they're trying to figure out a costume for the mom, and the mom comes up with the idea of wearing nothing but pink and putting on a hard hat with a table attached to it, and she's gum chewed up and stuck under the chair. So
that's funny.
That's how crazy these homemade costumes can be.
Who was the star of Brotherly Love? I'm trying to remember.
The Lawrence brothers. All three of them were in it.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
Joey,
I met the Lawrence brothers probably, I don't know, 3 weeks ago now at a convention, and I was talking to Andy, who Andy was the biggest part of that that show. He was the little boy, and we were just talking back and forth, and he was amazed at how much how much stuff I have from that show, because that was one of my favorite shows as a kid, and he signed a lot of stuff for me. We talked back and forth. It was really cool, really cool.
What event was that?
This was at RaptorCon in Evansville, Indiana.
Oh, okay. I was curious. I mean, because even though Tennessee's not that far from where I'm at, so I was just curious to see where things were at here.
Yeah, well, they're doing a horror con in St. Louis, not in a couple months.
Oh yeah, this coming weekend there's a thing called Halloween Palooza. Oh,
nice.
Up in Iowa.
Nice.
Which not too far as well, but they're gonna have Fright Night people there.
Oh,
so I think
nice.
William Ragsdale and Amanda Bierce and folks from the movie, as well as other folks. But I just was talking about that last night with my co-host, and so I was like, oh, that's interesting, because he's gonna go. So I don't really usually go to the con. He goes to all these cons and everything, and I typically am a homebody, so I was just curious which ones you went to, because he ends up running around to these things as well. So
right. Well, I do a lot of conventions to promote the Halloween podcast. People like to go. They like to hang out, and I talk to them. I meet fans. I get people that show up. They know the show. They I hand out free stuff all the time, like stickers and things like that. So I do a lot of things like that to help promote, and RaptorCon just happened to be one of them, because I knew the Lawrence brothers were going to be there, so I had to go. Will Friedle was there. I had to go because of that, and Carlos Elizraki was there, which if you guys know me, you know that I love advertising characters, and he was the voice of the Taco Bell dog, amongst other stuff.
Quiero.
Yeah, he was the voice, and he's such a great guy, and I was the first one there. Like when the convention opened, I was like one of the first ones in his line. Like there's no way I wasn't gonna wait, even though my table was all set up and like the con was open. I was in line waiting to see him. And,
now, is he from the state? Was he a comedian that's from the state? I'm trying to remember who he.
Yeah,
is.
he was here. He grew up in the. I'm not sure 100% how he grew up, but I do know that I remember hearing an interview where he said that he grew up in two different style homes. One was a Hispanic and one was a Scottish. So picking up both of those dialects very, very young, he was able to, train his voice to do a bunch of different things, different accents and things like that. So I'm pretty sure he was here in the States.
Oh, okay. Well, cool.
But don't quote me on it. But the cool thing about him was he learned my name, and he used it numerous times when I'd bump into him. Like the next day, I bumped into him in the bathroom, and he's like, "Hey, Lyle," and I was like, "Oh my gosh, he knows me now."
That's a talent. I am one of these people that remembers no one's name, and unfortunately, then I see people, I just go, "Hey, buddy," or "Hey." I can never remember, and I'm like, I feel horrible because I probably should, but I'm always like, I just make things up. How's it going? I don't know. I feel bad about it. This guy, he's a professional. He knows how to do these kind of things. He remembers people. Well, that's fantastic. That's a great. So you do essentially you marketing and so forth.
Yes.
And go to
I
these
do a lot of
things.
marketing.
But is there any perk for having a booth at these things as opposed to, you know what I mean? What perk does it give you to have a booth as opposed to not have a booth and just go?
Well, if you have a booth,
besides
of course,
the obvious.
Yeah, you're there to promote. You put your banners up at your table. People walk by, they go, "Oh, the Halloween podcast. What's that all about?" And then they. I have QR codes where people can scan it and subscribe, things like that. So I can't really do that if I'm just a guest. or just somebody that's there to see the celebrities. I always tell everyone when I walk around, I do a lot of walking around. A lot of the vendors get to know me. We get to know each other, and I always tell them that I'm not here to really sell anything, so I don't have to really be at my booth worried about people taking stuff, worried about trying to make enough money to pay for the booth. Like that's not what I'm there. I have a glorified VIP pass. I'm there all week. I have a place I can go and sit down, and I can walk around whenever I feel like it, and hand out stickers. Like it's just a VIP pass, but it's just glorified because I have a place that's like my own where I can just go and do what I want and go walk around.
Do you what? Now I'm asking you all these questions. What is your experience on these things? Do you obviously you're kind of got a dual purpose there because you want to be there personally as well as promote yourself. So it kind of you can just take anything and cut it in half because you're like, I just want to be here. Right. Do you find that it's useful? Do you see bumps? How does your marketing fare for each one of these? Do you, in your eyes, or is it just like, I just want to be there anyway, and this is the best way for me to be there?
Well, it's kind of hard to say because I do see an increase in like who subscribes. Like I can see the person, like, because I have a little sticker on there that says take a free sticker if you subscribe. So I'll see people bring out their phone, they go on Spotify, they hit the follow, and then they'll show me, and then oh great, take a sticker, just listen to the show. So people do that. They also like it's a good way to try to meet the celebrities, and I do tell them a lot of the times to sign things to the Halloween podcast, and then that sparks something in their head like, oh, the Halloween podcast, because that's not really like who really does a podcast about Halloween. So it kind of sticks with them, and then maybe later on they will be like, I need something to listen to. Oh, there was a guy at that convention that had the Halloween podcast. Let me see what that's all about. And so they'll search the Halloween podcast. It's kind of the same thing with everyone that walks by the booth. They'll see the banners that say the Halloween podcast. They might leave and not subscribe then, but probably literally a month later, they'll be like, I need something to listen to. And then they'll be like, oh yeah, I remember that Halloween podcast. Let me see what that's all about. And then, so the numbers do increase. I think we're close to about 10,000 downloads a week.
Wow.
Something like that. So it's it does help. It does increase the traffic. And it might not be immediate, but I mean, some of the vendors have started listening and they like it. I do get, I don't really want to say who, but I do know there are some celebrities that do listen that have sent me emails, and they're like, hey, I really love your show. So
That's great.
I do get that. So it's, plus I'll get I get a lot of messages from people saying that they love the show, which I love. I really love it when people contact me and they want to, they want to say hi and things like that. And that's what the conventions are for. There's a couple of times where people show up and they go, oh, I've been listening to you forever. Can we take a picture? I'm like, sure. Whatever. It is like, I always see myself as a nobody. I'm just a regular person who started talking about Halloween to one of these things, and that's it. That's all I am. I'm not a celebrity. My fan base was built entirely on me. Like that's just what I do. But
do you have like certain clothing that you wear whenever you're going to the conference? Or just normal stuff?
Just the Halloween podcast shirt is
just like
what I have on.
Just like a regular t-shirt.
One of the shirts that I have.
Yeah.
I'll have my jacket too that has the Halloween podcast, and I wear that whenever it's been so hot this month. I haven't even been able to wear my Halloween podcast jacket out, but I'll have stickers inside there. So if I'm walking around and somebody goes, oh, the Halloween podcast, what's that about? And I pull out, give them a sticker and say, here, check it out. It's a show about this. It's all about
random
marketing.
Thought. I'm like, do you give out Dracula teeth? That'd be just so fun. I don't know why.
I should consider that.
But the problem is branding those is a little tough. But I'm just like, well, wouldn't it be great if you just had a bowl of those fake teeth?
Yeah. But yeah, I mean I guess that's gonna do it for our talk here. Bob, you got anything else you want to mention?
No, you just listen to the Halloween podcast. Goodness gracious, this guy's doing everything. He's got it all. You talk about homemade. There you go.
Yeah. I am 100% homemade. Is how you want to look at it. But Bob, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. It's been great fun.
Yes. Anything you want to plug and where people can check out your stuff?
You can listen at Static Radio, at Static Radio or the socials, but don't feel compelled. It's okay. I'll be fine.
Well, perfect. All right. Well, that is going to do it for this episode. Like always, make sure you guys subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you guys like all of these episodes. Make sure you go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Halloween Podcast. If you want to send me an email, you're more than welcome to, thehalloweenpodcast@gmail.com. And I do reply to everything. Well, me and Megan do, but Megan usually lets me know if something comes up that I need to know. Megan's my somewhat co-host now, but yeah. All right, guys. So thank you so much, and Bob, thanks again for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Have a great day and happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween, of course. All right, guys. I'll see you later. Have a good night.